The air inside the studio felt easy at first. Light chatter, laughter from the crowd, the usual energy of a daytime talk show. Warm lights spilled over the set. Steve Harvey, calm and familiar, sat across from Caroline Leavitt. She wore a powder, blue suit, not a strand of her blonde hair out of place. Composed, controlled. At first glance, she looked like every bit of what the public expected from a rising White House star. Steve cracked a gentle joke about her being young enough to still be paying off college loans, and the crowd chuckled. She smiled, polite, soft, but her eyes, they were distant, like her body was there, but her mind had already gone somewhere darker, somewhere far away from applause and cameras. Then she turned slightly in her seat. Not a sudden move, not dramatic, just enough for Steve to sense the change. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly, but the microphone picked up every word. He leaned forward, that same smile still playing at his lips, trying to keep things light. "It's right," he said. "Let's hear it." She looked up, her gaze meeting his, steady and almost apologetic. She took a slow breath. "This is not for TV," she said, "but I need to say it here, because I need people to understand." A flicker crossed Steve's face, confusion, maybe concern. He glanced at the camera operator, then back at her. She blinked. "Once, the man you helped," her voice caught in her throat, then steadied. "He died because of me. And I need the world to know the truth." Gasps were swallowed into silence. The audience froze. Even the floor crew stopped moving. Somewhere backstage, a stage manager whispered, "What the hell?" into a headset. Steve's mouth fell slightly open. His eyes searched hers, trying to find the meaning. Was this a political stunt? A confession? A cry for help? Caroline did not break the stare. She did not blink, and in that breathless pause, something broke inside the room. A calm shattered. A door opened, and there was no turning back. 2 years earlier, Caroline Leavitt sat alone in a rental apartment outside Manchester. The floorboards creaked under every step, and the silence pressed in like a weight. Her campaign signs, once plastered across local yards, now leaned against the wall, dusty and forgotten. She had believed in the people, believed in her message, but the voters had not believed in her. The night she lost the congressional race, it had rained hard. Reporters lined up to tear her apart. Too young, too ambitious, too polished. Headlines focused more on her age than her ideas. Her inbox filled with pity and judgment, some subtle, some cruel. Her phone rang less and less. Her parents tried to comfort her, but she stopped answering. It was easier to scroll in the dark, to dive into anonymous threads where people talked politics without knowing her name. That was where she first saw his message. Just a simple reply to a post she made under a fake profile. But his words were different. Sharp, careful, like he could read between the lines. His name was Miles. He was not flashy. His profile photo was old, maybe taken years back. But his words carried weight. He had once worked on campaigns in the South, knew how the game was played. He did not offer sympathy. He offered understanding. They moved to private messages within days. Their conversations stretched late into the night. Caroline would sit on the floor in sweatpants, hair tied up, eyes fixed on the screen like it held something sacred. Miles never pushed, never flattered. He asked questions no one else did, real questions about why she ran, about what she was running from. One night she told him about the night she stood alone in the green room after her concession speech. trying not to cry because the staff still had cameras rolling. He did not offer advice, just said, "I've been there. That loneliness does not leave you. You just learn how to use it." She stared at that sentence for a long time. He offered to help, not out of pity, but because he believed she still had a future. She did not know why she trusted him. Maybe it was because he never asked for anything in return. Maybe because he made her feel like her pain had meaning. Within months, she was in D.C., a junior role in the White House press office, quiet but real. It was Miles who had connected her to the right person. He never asked to meet. He stayed in her messages, in her late-night calls, like a voice she kept hidden. But their bond changed. It was not physical. Not at first. But it grew into something neither of them said aloud. The long silences on the phone. The pauses that felt heavier than words. She caught herself smiling when he texted. Caught herself waiting when he did not. One night, she asked him why he never visited. He said, "Because you still shine, and I do not want to cast a shadow on that." That was the first time she cried in weeks. She did not know everything about him, only pieces. That he had been part of something messy in a past campaign. That he had burned bridges. But she did not ask, because she needed someone who saw her, not someone who judged. Caroline felt like he had saved her. And maybe, in his own way, he believed the same. But needing someone, and depending on them, are not the same. And when a connection becomes a lifeline, it only takes one fray to break everything. Caroline moved through the White House halls like she belonged there. Sharp heels, flawless suit, eyes forward. On the surface, she looked untouchable. People saw ambition and calm. What they did not see was the phone hidden inside her desk drawer, the one she only answered after midnight, the one that rang when Miles needed her. He had stopped being gentle months ago. What began as soft guidance had turned into control, disguised as concern. He would call and ask if she had eaten, if she was sleeping, if anyone in the office seemed to be watching her too closely. At first, it felt like protection. Later, it felt like surveillance. "You would not even be in that building if it were not for me," he said one night. His voice was quiet but sharp, like he was daring her to disagree. She stared out her window, Washington glowing behind the glass. Her hand tightened around the phone. "You helped me, Miles, I know that. But this is my job now. You are not the one running comms." He laughed, low, bitter. "You think they care about you? The moment you slip, they will chew you up and spit you out, and you will come crawling back." Those words echoed long after she hung up. It started small. He asked for summaries of press briefings. Who said what? What was being planned? Harmless, he said, things anyone could guess. But when he started pushing for more, for internal messages, staff notes, she hesitated. "Nothing dangerous," he insisted. "You trust me, right?" She did. Or maybe she just could not afford to lose him. The way he spoke, it hooked something in her, like he knew the parts of her she kept buried. The doubt, the fear of being a fraud. He made her feel like he was the only one who truly saw her. But the guilt, it grew fast. She stopped replying as often, delayed his calls, avoided his messages. The space between them widened, and Miles felt it. "You think you are better than me now?" he snapped during their last call. "You think you can just erase me?" "I am trying to fix things," she said, voice trembling. "You are not helping anymore. You are scaring me." He paused for a second, then said something that made her blood run cold. "I could ruin you, Caroline. All it would take is one email, one recording. That night, she turned off the phone and shoved it deep into the back of a drawer. Then Miles disappeared. She found out from a news alert. Unidentified man found dead in a cheap Virginia motel. No ID, no wallet, no note, but she knew. Before his name was released, before the photo circulated, she already knew. The weight of it pressed on her chest like a block of concrete. She did not cry. She did not speak his name. Until a week later, when Steve Harvey's producer called the White House, asking for a private conversation. Something had arrived at the studio. A plain envelope. No return address. Inside was a flash drive. Steve almost did not open it. But curiosity pulled him in. What he found stopped him cold. Miles, sitting on the edge of a motel bed, pale, unshaven, eyes swollen. "This is not for TV," he said in the first video. "This is for you, Steve. You changed my life once. You probably forgot. But I saw you on a youth tour years ago. You talked about surviving pain, about pushing through. I clung to that. You were the reason I kept going." He paused, looked down, swallowed hard. "But I am not okay anymore, and I need you to understand why." There were other videos. One where Miles talked about Caroline, how he helped her, how he loved her, how she pulled away, how he broke down. "I thought she needed me, but maybe I just needed to be needed." One recording, his voice cracked. "I did things I am not proud of. Pressured her, used fear. I crossed lines. I hurt her. I hate myself for it." Then silence. The last clip showed him placing the phone down on the table. Then darkness. Steve watched it all, alone. No cameras, no studio audience. Just him and the raw truth of a man who collapsed under the weight of obsession and guilt. He knew Caroline was hiding something, but now he had proof, not of a crime in the traditional sense, but of something far more painful. A connection that twisted into control, a bond that cracked under pressure, and a girl who had once trusted the wrong person. Caroline's voice shook as she stared across the stage at Steve. Her hands were clasped tightly on her lap, knuckles pale, shoulders stiff. For a long moment she did not speak. The silence around her was heavy, but it gave her room to breathe. She had rehearsed these words alone in the mirror, but standing here, they felt heavier, more real. "I watched your videos," she finally said, her voice soft but steady. "Not the funny ones, the ones where you talked about pain, about losing your way, about still waking up and trying again." She wiped at her cheek, but the tears kept coming. "I was not okay. I felt like I had no control over anything. My life, my job, the person I thought I could trust." She paused. "Miles knew I was lost, and he used it. He was kind at first, supportive, but then he became something else. He made me believe I owed him everything, that I would never belong in this world unless he allowed it." The room held its breath. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she continued, "but I let him too far in. I gave him access to things I should have protected, because I was scared. I thought I would lose everything if I pushed back." She turned her eyes to Steve, her voice trembling now. "Then one night I found this old video of you. You were standing on some small stage, talking to a group of kids. You said, 'If you are still breathing, God is not done with you.' I do not know why, but that line broke something in me." Her throat tightened. She reached for breath like she was climbing out of water. "I realized I could not carry this any more. That hiding would only make it worse. So I found out who had the flash drive. I knew you had it. I knew what was on it." Steve sat frozen. His hands rested on his knees. His shoulders looked heavier than before. "I came here because I needed you to understand," she said. "That man, he loved you. He listened to you. He believed in what you said. But he still broke. And I was part of that. I saw the damage and stayed quiet too long." Her voice cracked. "I am sorry." Steve leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes red. He did not try to blink the tears away. His voice, when it finally came, was hoarse. "I say those things," he whispered. "I say them because I believe them. But I never thought it would come to this." He paused, breathing shallow. "I talked about faith, about fighting your way through darkness. And he heard me, and still died." The audience remained silent. Some stared at the floor. Others wiped their faces. Caroline reached out, just a little. Her fingers curled halfway between comfort and confession. "I needed someone to believe me when I said I was not the villain," she said. "But maybe I was not innocent either, and maybe this is the only way to show the truth. All of it." Steve looked at her like he was seeing someone brand new. Not a political figure, not a guest, just a person breaking in front of him. And all he could do was sit in the weight of what his words once meant, and what they could never undo. The footage of Caroline's confession aired less than 24 hours after the live show. By morning, it was everywhere. Every news outlet played it. Clips were shared across timelines. Millions watched her break down on national television. Some called her brave. Others called her dangerous. Her name trended beside words like traitor and truth-teller. Nobody saw her as just a press secretary anymore. She had become a symbol, a cautionary tale, or a scapegoat. In cable news debates, she was dissected like a case file. Hosts speculated whether she leaked classified information. Commentators questioned her relationship with Miles. Some asked why the White House had hired her in the first place. Headlines ran wild. Power, pressure, and secrets in the West Wing. Every photo of her looked colder, harsher, as if grief could be captured and twisted in a still frame. Inside the West Wing, silence spread faster than words. There were no meetings called in her defense, no press statements, no official support. A quiet investigation opened, then a resignation. She typed it alone in her office. No speech, no goodbye email, just a short letter, folded once, left on the deputy director's desk. Caroline did not wait for the blowback. She left Washington with nothing but a duffel bag, and the silence that had followed her since Miles's voice had faded from her phone. Back in New Hampshire, the cold air hit differently. Cleaner, but heavier too. The streets she had grown up on felt smaller. The diner servers still recognized her. Some smiled. Others looked away. Her parents said little. They were kind, but careful. Everyone was careful now. She did not speak about what happened. Not at first. She took a job at a non-profit for youth mental health. Quiet hours. Listening to kids who said nothing to anyone else. Kids who carried shame they could not name. She saw herself in them. Not the version from the campaign. Not the girl in the blue suit, but the one who had stayed up reading messages that slowly turned into chains. Late one night, she opened her laptop. She started writing, not to defend herself, not to argue with the headlines, but to tell the truth about him, about Miles, the charm, the control, the fear that crept in disguised as care. She wrote until the sun rose. Then she kept going. Her name was no longer just trending. It was finally hers again. The stage was empty now. The lights had dimmed. The applause long gone. Only the chairs remained, 2 of them, still angled toward each other like they were waiting for something more to be said. But there was nothing left. The story had been told, not cleaned up, not edited, just laid bare, piece by piece, until there was nothing left to hide behind. Caroline's voice still echoed in the minds of everyone who had watched, not because she had been perfect, but because she had been real. She stood there not as a politician or victim, not as a hero or villain, but as someone broken, trying to explain how it happened. Miles's name stirred different things in people. Some blamed him, some pitied him. Most just did not know what to do with a man who had been both a mentor and a manipulator. His face, once invisible to the public, had become the center of a storm he never lived to see. His mistakes were clear, but so was his pain. And somewhere in all of it was Steve, a man used to offering answers. But this time he had only questions. His faith was not shaken, but something inside him had changed. There are moments that make you feel small. This was one of them, because sometimes the very words meant to lift someone up are the ones that echo after they are gone. The screen faded to black as his voice returned, low and quiet. In the world of politics and power, it is easy to forget that behind every photo is a person. Behind every mistake is a reason. Behind every silence is something that was never said. Then came the pause, one that felt personal, one that gave the weight of the story room to breathe. If you are still breathing, God is not done with you, but sometimes we forget, and sometimes someone else has to remind us. The sound faded, but the truth stayed, because no matter how loud the noise gets, it is the quietest stories that leave the deepest mark.